This show is set in the 1950s based on the novel by Bonnie Garmis. It follows Elizabeth Zott, played by Brie Larson. Her dream of being a scientist is put on hold in a patriarchal society. When Elizabeth finds herself fired from her lab, she accepts a job as a host on a TV cooking show and sets out to teach a nation of overlooked housewives and the men who are suddenly listening a lot more than recipes. Please join me in welcoming to the stage showrunner and executive producer Lee Eisenberg, executive producer and star Brie Larson, starring as Calvin, Louis Pullman, and as Harriet, Asia Naomi King. Welcome, everyone. So before we start talking about this fantastic show, we're going to roll a clip.
What you're seeing is combustion. The effect is dramatic, but the science is simple.
Best served
with cake. I don't think I've ever curtsied before. Well, there's a first time for everything. And a last. I'll see you tomorrow. Children, set the table. Your mother needs a moment to herself.
So Lee, I'll start with you. I had read this book and been obsessed with it. Was that your experience before you began work on the show? Tell me how you came to the story.
Yes, the answer is yes. I was completely obsessed with the book. Brie and Michael Costigan and Jason Bateman's company found the book years before I was even aware of it. And I read the book and flipped for it, and I found out that it was at Apple. I found out that Brie Larson was attached, and I raised my hand and said, if there's a job opening, I would like it. And very in short order, I was on a Zoom with Brie, and we were talking about it, and yeah, we were just off to the races. It was an absolutely incredible experience, and adapting something that I was so in love with, and with these characters, it was a dream job.
Brie, this character is my absolute hero. I can't think of a character I've liked more in like the past few years than Elizabeth Zott. She is a feminist hero. She has an absolute moral compass. But she's also an excellent cook and a scientist. And I believe that you were an enthusiastic cook going into this. But what did you know about chemistry, and how did you figure that part out?
Oh, I'm a chemist. It's not my strong suit, but that's the fun of the job. And to me, the heart of Elizabeth is, it's not always about, I get to be in the same place as the audience, or a lot of the audience, in terms of being in the position to translate these incredible feats of science through her, so that the audience at least somewhat gets what's going on, because we're not going to diminish her, but we also can't create a world where she has to constantly explain herself either. So it was the great challenge of it. It's like learning a new language and figuring out how to pronounce words. I learned French, and it's like not dissimilar to that idea. How do you pronounce these words? How do you say it in this way that reflects the community? And then understanding how much is the same and where she's coming from. It's still baffling to me that I get confused from time to time, and I think, oh, she's so different than me, she's a scientist, I could never be like that. And then as more time goes on, you're like, oh, but her process is actually very similar to mine. And it is a creative field. It's just translated in a way that's like beyond, and I'm in awe of her. And being her was an absolute delight and pleasure, and I just never wanted it to end, really.
I had read that Bonnie Garmis, the novelist, had designed Elizabeth as sort of an amalgam of characters from her mother's generation. Did you have much contact with her about having created this character and how to kind of embody Elizabeth?
Well, the beauty of this is that we had this book, and Bonnie's such a brilliant writer that Elizabeth always felt strangely clear to me. Even just, it's hard for me to turn around and like look at this, but like I could see little pieces and I still was like, wow, it's so interesting that there's certain things that it's a testament to her writing, how clear and robust and multi-dimensional, multifaceted this character was. And so I was following her lead in that way, and then just like fingers crossed that I was doing something that could even be a tiny bit of what she created, because that is a task I don't know if I've ever really had to do before. I had a little bit of the luck that the book hadn't come out yet, and so I got to live in my own world for a little bit, and then the book came out and I was like, oh no. But I think it works, you know, and again, it's always been, you know, Bonnie's work has been the North Star of this, and of course, like, I can only be responsible for my work. If you have a problem with Elizabeth, then that's my problem, it's not Bonnie's problem. But it felt like I was just so deeply inspired by her. It was just taking that next step forward with the path that she had laid out.
Lewis, your role of Calvin, I mean, I feel like he's like the internet's boyfriend at this point. He's the most lovable person and quirky and just amazing guy with the ultimate integrity. Talk to us a little bit about building that character, and also I'd love to hear a little bit about the rowing, and I guess that goes for you both, because I recently was talking with Callum Turner, who made The Boys in the Boat with George Clooney, and he said that he was instructed, there's nothing like rowing to bond people, because you literally have to be of one mind. Was that your experience? Did that help you guys build the dynamic?
I mean, I would say we did a lot of one-on-ones with Jack, our trainer, but we had different schedules in prep. You know, right?
She just said he crashed the boat.
I was in the boat when it crashed. Yeah. There were only 2 people, so I'm sure I was part of the reason.
Definitely
I was
not
the
you.
instructor.
Yeah.
So you could decide, yeah.
Yeah.
You're an excellent actor.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I got pretty good at pretending that I could not crash. But I think, yeah, I mean, it is one of the hardest things I've ever had to try and learn fast, you know. As an actor, you try your best to learn what most people spend a lifetime mastering in like 3 weeks or something, or 4 weeks, I don't know how long we had, but yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's a very meditative sport. I can see why that's a huge part of what people loved about the book, and so it was important to try and keep up with Brie's incredible learning curve. I was always trying to just keep up there, but I think it looks like I could row a little bit.
I believed it.
Yeah?
I definitely. Anyone else? Did you guys believe it? I did.
Yeah, let's ask the rowers.
We've got notes from the rowers, I'm sure. But,
Yeah, they're awfully quiet, aren't they?
But also tell us about actually embodying Calvin as a personality, because he's a very singular person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. It's hard, you know, adapting a book is a challenge, because when somebody reads a book and falls in love with the book, it's a story that is catered towards their imagination. They get to create their best version of it. So it's hard to compete with that, which is what was so great about coming in with this team who was so adamant about doing service to the story, the original story, while also bringing in our own original breath and life to it. And so it was just kind of a beautiful kind of current of creativity and listening, and you know, it was very collaborative, and you know, I didn't create, you know, I didn't bring Calvin by myself. I was really just kind of following orders, and you know, no, luckily, you know, I was surrounded by people who, you know, love and loved the book and loved, the Calvin, and so I could bring what I liked to him, and then also, like bring stuff that wasn't into the book, like a lot of Asianized stuff was compounded on that I thought was really, it got to breathe its own life, and so just stopped rambling.
Well, I enjoyed the rambling. Thank you. Asia, and I want to follow up on something that Lewis just said. Obviously, what happens with Harriet is somewhat different from the character in the book. I love that Harriet shows up in every way a person can show up for her friend, for Elizabeth. But at the same time, she will not waver from her mission. She's very driven. And we see her staging the freeway protest, tackling these incredibly racist covenants in Los Angeles. And tell us about shooting that particular situation.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. It was such a remarkable day. It was so beautiful to me. It was also, it was very overwhelming. There's something about when you are standing in a space reenacting something that you know that people went through. And if you've ever been to a protest, there is just this overwhelming sense of urgency that kind of takes over you because you know what you're doing is so important. And so just kind of living in the space of like, people went through this, people still go through this, is what was, I know, like carried in my spirit during that time. And then we didn't quite know all of the choreography that we would be witnessing while we were filming that scene, and it was oddly the sort of thing where we knew we didn't have a lot of time because we shut down an actual freeway. So, but even in the we don't have a lot of time, there was this need to just honor the process. It didn't feel rushed. It felt fully embodied and just really, really beautiful to inhabit it and be there with each other, and then find moments to laugh between takes and have conversation and enjoy ourselves. But then just the surprise of sitting in that first hand and it just being done so realistically, which is you don't have to engineer the emotions in that moment because it's really just emerging out of you, being present in it. Yeah, I loved playing Harriet. I loved everything that was created for Harriet, and the way in which Harriet and Elizabeth got to have this relationship and an earned relationship, which I love. The honesty with one another, the shared experiences, the conversations about not shared experiences. All of it. It's just so beautiful, so beautifully done, Lee.
Thank you.
Well, very well said, Asia. But that does lead me to my next nagging question for Lee, which is, I know Bonnie has said she doesn't have a sequel in mind, but, I mean, the reception for this show has been phenomenal. What are your thoughts?
My thought is that writing is hard. No, I think if the right idea came along, I think we would certainly consider it. Working with these people was the gift of a lifetime, truly. It's the best working experience I've ever had. So selfishly, I want to keep working with them for as long as I can. And if it's in Lessons in Chemistry season 2, then great. And if it's something else, great. But we really felt like we reached the end of the story, and so we don't really talk about it. We have no plans for a season 2.
Well, damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
We finished the book.
We finished the book. Yeah.
We
But
finished.
a girl can dream. So, Brie, I just want to ask you, just to wrap it up, if there is something that Elizabeth left you with that inspired you in your life.
Oh, It's that when you say to yourself, this hurts so much, it doesn't make any sense, you just give it time.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. Well, everyone, thank you so much for being here to talk about lessons in chemistry. I absolutely love this show. Congratulations. Thank you.